Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of really dense material and distill it down into the most essential insights for you, our listener. Today, we're plunging into a truly fascinating subject, the ancient legal and spiritual practice known as the bitter water ordeal. Now, our journey today is based entirely on a singularly rich source. That's Part 4, Chapter 5 of Sir James George Frazer's huge work, Folklore in the Old Testament. Our mission really is to unpack this intriguing Hebrew law and then explore its, well, quite surprising parallels across the globe. It should give you a good shortcut to being well-informed on this captivating and sometimes pretty unsettling topic.
Absolutely. And what's so illuminating about this specific ritual, which might seem quite unique at first glance, is how it actually gives us this profound window into the broader human experience of justice and belief and the fundamental structures that held ancient societies together. It really highlights how deeply ingrained the need to find out the truth, determine guilt, has been throughout history, often relying on what we'd now probably call supernatural intervention.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our deep dive begins right in the priestly code, specifically numbers 5.1128. For those maybe less familiar, the priestly code is a significant collection of ancient Jewish laws found within the Torah, shaping many aspects of Israelite life and worship. This specific passage lays out a very detailed judicial procedure. It's about a husband who suspects his wife of infidelity. What exactly happens next, according to this ancient text?
Right. The ritual is quite elaborate, very symbolic. The husband brings his wife to the priest carrying what's called a meal offering of jealousy, and that's barley meal, specifically prepared without oil or frankincense, which signifies, a somber occasion, not a celebration. Then the priest takes holy water in an earthen vessel and mixes it with dust, just dust swept from the tabernacle floor.
Dust from the floor, okay.
Yeah. The woman is then set before the Lord, her hair is loosened, and she holds this meal offering. The priest, holding the bitter water, recites a very specific curse. If she's innocent, she's declared free. But if she's been unfaithful, the water supposedly will cause her belly to swell and her thigh to fall away.
And her response to this curse?
She has to respond with a solemn "Amen, amen," basically affirming her consent to the ordeal and its consequences.
Right, accepting the terms.
Exactly. Then, in a really striking detail, the priest writes these curses down. Frazer clarifies it's likely on a slip of parchment, not a big book. And here's the crucial part. He blots the ink with the curses written in it, directly into the bitter water.
He washes the words into the water.
Precisely. Then the meal offering is waved before the Lord, a handful is burned on the altar, and finally the woman drinks this holy water. Water now imbued with both the dust of the sanctuary and the sort of essence of the written curse itself.
It's really striking that Frazer points out this is the only record of a trial by ordeal actually prescribed by Jewish law. What does that uniqueness suggest to him about its origins, its nature?
Yeah, Frazer's view is pretty clear on this. Even though the account appears in the priestly code, which was likely compiled later, after the exile, he believes the practice itself is immemorial among the Israelites, ancient. He sees it as a relic, really, a barbarous and frankly ineffectual way to find out the truth, rooted in what he calls gross ignorance and credulity.
Harsh words.
They are. But what he finds fascinating is how these sorts of archaic customs can long linger, even in societies that seem more civilized, just because law and custom tend to be so conservative. And those supposed physical effects, the swelling belly, the falling thigh, they aren't presented as natural outcomes, but as these very precise, divinely ordained results of guilt.
That sounds incredibly vague, though, and terrifyingly subjective. I mean, how do they actually determine if someone's belly swelled enough? Was it objective or just the priest's call? It seems wide open for manipulation.
Yeah. Well, Frazer implies it relied mostly on the superstitious fears of the guilty woman, rather than any easily observable physical change. He suggests the water itself was probably harmless, innocuous.
So it's psychological.
Very much so, it seems. The psychological impact, combined with the powerful societal belief in the ritual, that was the real force at play, which, as you say, immediately highlights how vulnerable these systems were.
Fascinating. And Frazer's work, it doesn't just stop with Israel, does it? He immediately starts drawing these striking analogies from all over Africa. What's the general picture he paints of these poison ordeals on that continent?
Yeah, he casts a wide net. Across tropical and southern Africa, especially among many Bantu and other groups, these poison ordeals were incredibly common, widespread. Primarily, they were used to detect witchcraft, which was a huge societal concern, a major source of fear, but they were also used for theft, infidelity, even just confirming the sanctity of oaths. And the general pattern, which we see again and again, is starkly consistent. If the accused vomits the poison up, they're innocent. If they die, or sometimes just fail to vomit, they're guilty.
Simple, brutal logic. And Frazer identifies specific plants used. Tell us about the Erythrophleum tree, the one often called sasswood or casca.
Right, the Erythrophleum tree or sasswood, that was a major source for these ordeal poisons. Frazer notes its bark yields this really potent, often fatal poison, causes violent vomiting, convulsions.
Sounds nasty.
It is, and what's particularly interesting, Frazer points out how the tree's natural habitat often correlates with where these ordeals were most prevalent. It shows this direct link between the local environment, the available resources, and the cultural practice that develops.
Let's dive into some specific examples. They really bring these practices to life. What stands out from Frazer's accounts of how these worked in different African tribes?
Oh, there are some very vivid examples. The Balantes of Senegal, for instance, provide a chilling case. They used the bark of a tree called manson or bourdain for witchcraft accusations. Vomiting meant acquittal, same pattern. But here's the really profound insight Frazer brings out. The poisoner, often an old woman administering the dose, could apparently manipulate the strength of the poison for bribes.
Corruption even then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Effectively selling mercy to those who could afford it. It reveals this crucial, dark truth. Even in what seemed like deeply spiritual ordeals, human factors, economic disparities, they could completely twist the scales of divine justice. Made these trials far from impartial. Frazer actually reports these ordeals were devastating. He mentions estimates of up to a fourth of the population perishing in what he calls orgies of poison.
A fourth. That's staggering, just horrifying. Were there other examples that really connect back to that Hebrew bitter water specifically?
Absolutely. If we look at the Mossi of what was then French Sudan, Frazer describes a particularly compelling parallel. The accused would drink water mixed with earth from sacrificial places.
Earth, again, like the dust in the tabernacle.
Precisely. And this was believed to kill the guilty, strikingly similar to the holy dust in the Hebrew ritual. They also used something called corpse-tinctured water.
Corpse tinctured, what's that?
It involved washing the hands of a corpse and then having the accused drink that water, mostly for sorcery accusations. It implies this transfer of negative power, or perhaps the corpse's knowledge. It highlights the shared belief system around the power contained in sacred, or maybe tainted, earth and water.
So we're seeing both patterns emerge clearly. The poison is judge and this tainted water is judge.
Exactly. And in Sierra Leone, they had the red water ordeal using Erythrophleum bark again. There, vomiting up unchanged rice or kola nuts that were eaten beforehand was the key to proving innocence. Survivors actually gain high social esteem, but what truly underscores the absolute faith people placed in these ordeals is an anecdote Frazer includes about a man who was actually saved from death by a Scotsman intervening.
He was grateful.
Quite the opposite. He apparently resented the intervention because it prevented him from clearing his name definitively through the ordeal. For him, it was the ultimate arbiter, not something humans should interfere with.
Wow, that speaks volumes about the belief system. What other vivid examples does Frazer bring up?
Well, on the Gold Coast, they used odum wood, often accompanied by spoken curses, imprecations, and Frazer notes that perjurers there were believed to swell till he bursts.
Swell till he bursts. That sounds incredibly similar to the feat described for the adulteress in the Hebrew text.
It's a remarkable parallel, isn't it? This shared imagery of physical distortion, swelling, as a sign of divine judgment. It's a powerful link across cultures.
And in Upper Guinea, you mentioned the red water from mimosa bark. There, the sign of guilt was the accused experiencing vertigo and lost self-control. That sounds like they thought the ordeal itself had some kind of intelligence.
Indeed. It was believed to possess intelligence, Frazer says, and could physically lay hold of the element of witchcraft within the person's body. This often led to brutal public shaming and frequently death by beating or dragging if they showed those signs. This concept of the ordeal itself as an active agent discerning truth, not just a passive test, is really key to Frazer's broader theory.
Okay.
Then in Calabar, they use the Physostigma venenosum, the Calabar bean, or poison bean. This was for Ifut, their term for witchcraft. It was apparently so widespread and the belief in it so absolute that sometimes entire villages would take the poison collectively to root out suspected witches, which, as you can imagine, led to massive depopulation. The societal acceptance of such extreme measures is just staggering.
Unbelievable.
And one final really interesting twist comes from the fans of the Congo Basin. They used the Mbandu poison from Strychnos species, but sometimes it wasn't given to the accused.
No. Who took it then?
It was given to the medicine man, the diviner. Under its intoxicating effects, he would babble, rave, and his utterances were interpreted as divine revelations. Sometimes these ravings actually exonerated the accused.
So the poison was a tool for divination, not just judgment.
Exactly. It powerfully illustrates the belief in the poison not just as an executioner, but as an intelligent, divining agent, a way to access hidden truths known only to the supernatural realm.
So, pulling back a bit, what does all this mean for the global context? Beyond Africa, where else did these kinds of ordeals take root, according to Frazer? And what do those examples add?
Frazer shows us this wasn't just an African phenomenon. The poison ordeal also had a significant presence in Madagascar and India, which reinforces the idea of a maybe universal human impulse to use such methods when faced with uncertainty about guilt. In Madagascar, he says, it was arguably the most famous ordeal. They used the kernel of the tangina tree, Tangenia venifera, primarily for witchcraft and treason, the big crimes. And the core belief there was that a supernatural power, a searcher of hearts, actually resided in the fruit itself.
Directly in the food.
Directly in the fruit. The ritual involved the accused eating rice and 3 small pieces of fowl skin, then drinking the tangina infusion. Innocence was proven if they vomited up those 3 pieces of skin uninjured. And like in Africa, Frazer notes, it was often manipulated. Property confiscation after a guilty verdict provided a strong incentive for false accusations by the powerful.
The human element again.
Always. But what's truly remarkable, and brings us back towards the Hebrew ritual, is the invocation they used. They prayed to a deity called Raimanamongo, believed to reside in the egg-shaped tangina fruit. The prayers and curses directly parallel the Hebrew text. They explicitly address the poison, the fruit, as this all-seeing, all-hearing entity, asking it to either kill him immediately, tear his flesh, wring or twist his bowels, if guilty, or for the innocent to let him live quickly, let him dance and run about merrily like one who has drunk cold water. The parallels in the language, the direct address, are striking.
And what about India? How does that tradition fit into this global picture?
In India, Frazer explains, the poison ordeal was practiced since time immemorial. It's recorded by ancient lawgivers like Vishnu and Narada. He identifies 2 main types there. One involved drinking poisonous roots like Vishanga or white arsenic mixed with clarified butter. The other was the hooded snake ordeal.
Hooded snake?
Yes, retrieving an object from a pot containing a live cobra, basically. If you got bitten, you were guilty.
Terrifying.
Absolutely. The preferred poison plant, though, was from the syringa tree, which Frazer identifies as a species of Aconitum monkshood, wolfsbane, a highly poisonous herb. And similar to Madagascar, there were direct prayers addressed to the poison itself as an intelligent entity. O poison, thou art Brahman's son, save me, become ambrosia to me, asking it to turn harmless if the person was innocent. Frazer really highlights the remarkable consistency of these core rituals and beliefs across such huge distances, Africa, Madagascar, India. It suggests a shared underlying worldview about how truth could be divined.
So bringing it all together, what does Frazer conclude is the core theory behind all these widespread poison ordeals? What's the common thread?
Frazer's unified theory, essentially, is that the use of these poison ordeals, which he notes are largely confined to Africa, Madagascar, and India, suggesting maybe diffusion or shared roots, is based on this fundamental belief. The poison itself is an animate and intelligent being. It acts, in their minds, as a searcher of hearts. It enters the body, somehow detects the symptoms of his guilt or innocence, and then makes a decision: kill or spare.
So the poison is personified. It's an agent.
Exactly. This personification is crystal clear in the direct prayers addressed to the poison, and even in the ceremonies sometimes used when gathering the plant medicine men speaking to the tree, asking for its power. And the explanation for vomiting meaning innocence. Frazer suggests the belief was the intelligent poison simply quits the body by the same door by which he entered, acknowledging its services as an executioner weren't needed. If it stays inside or is purged differently, that signals guilt. Sometimes, he adds, this is combined with the idea that guilt itself is almost a material substance, something the poison helps eject and can even be seen in the vomit.
Right. This brings us straight back to the Hebrew bitter water, then. What light do all these global parallels shed on that unique Israelite practice, especially given Frazer's view that the water itself was probably harmless?
Well, Frazer suggests the Hebrew bitter water was indeed innocuous in itself. Its power didn't come from inherent poison, but purely from, 1, the dust of the sanctuary mixed in, and 2, crucially, the written curses. Its real force, he argues, came from the superstitious fears of the guilty woman, the psychological weight. And that act of washing off the written curses into the water is, for Frazer, a superstition pure and simple. But, and this is the key, it's a superstition with these remarkable global parallels that really illuminate what's likely going on.
That specific detail, washing words into water to be consumed, where else does Fraser find that idea?
It's surprisingly widespread, actually. He gives several examples. Muslim doctors in Senegambia washing passages from the Quran into water for patients to drink for its blessed influence.
For healing.
Yes, or in Morocco and North Africa. Love charms or magical formulas written on food or plates or even eggshells, then washed off and consumed. Egyptians washing Quran passages from special cups into water. Madagascans washing Arabic prayers into water for the sick. And even further afield, he mentions practices in Tibet, China, Annam, Japan, where charms, spells, or sacred characters were inscribed, then ingested or washed into water, sometimes for healing, sometimes like the bitter water for guilt detection. It demonstrates this really deep, widespread human belief that magical or sacred power could somehow be transferred from written words into water and then ingested, taken into the body, to have a direct effect, whether for healing, love, or in this case, revealing hidden guilt.
Fascinating. So looking back at this whole exploration, what stands out to you most from this deep dive into the bitter water ordeal and all its worldwide analogs?
For me, I think it's the sheer universality of the human need to determine truth and enforce some kind of justice. That seems fundamental, coupled with the incredible diversity and maybe the shared ingenuity, or perhaps folly, of the methods people developed to achieve that end. The deep reliance on divine or supernatural intervention, whether through a personified poison or sanctified dust and written curses, it really speaks to a fundamental human desire for an infallible arbiter, something beyond our own fallible judgment. It's a powerful testament, really, to how deeply ingrained beliefs, even beliefs that seem entirely irrational to us now, profoundly shaped the very fabric of ancient legal and social systems.
It is truly remarkable, isn't it? How similar these practices are across vastly different cultures, and how they illustrate these deeply ingrained human beliefs about guilt, innocence, and maybe the unseen forces people felt were at play in the world.
Indeed. And these aren't just, historical curiosities dug up by Frazer. They really prompt us to consider how beliefs, even seemingly irrational ones, continue to shape societal norms and perhaps even legal frameworks today in ways we might not always recognize.
And that really raises an important question for you, our listener, to think about. Given these insights from Fraser, thinking about the bitter water and its parallels, what other seemingly modern legal or social practices might actually have roots in these kinds of deeply ingrained human beliefs and fears? Roots that extend far beyond their apparent logic or stated purpose. Something for you to mull over or maybe explore on your own.